next speaker is Rick Jones. An alum of Dartmouth College and Georgetown University Law Center, he has had a varied career in and out of the government. Following his tenure in the Enforcement Division of the United States Commodity Futures Trading Commission, Mr. Jones led a law practice litigating civil and criminal matters and served as general counsel of a major not-for-profit organization involved in low and moderate income housing development. Since 1999, he has consulted throughout the United States on matters of diversity, inclusion, and workforce integration, primarily for leading law firms and corporations.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here. I was telling someone earlier today that when I was a student here, I'm in the class of 75, which is the last all-male class at Dartmouth, and I had had a lot of misgivings about my time here, but as time has gone on, I've learned so much to appreciate the beauty of this area, the beauty of the college. My story around purpose relates actually going back to high school. In 1969, I was selected to be part of a group of African American high school students. Were being invited to be part of a group called the Archbishop's Leadership Project. And the group was created to create and attract young men to the Catholic Church solely for the purpose of becoming priests. Now, to put this in some historical context for you, 1968, the assassination of Martin Luther King, riots all across the country, and the then Cardinal Cook of the Archdiocese of New York thought that he would create a cadre of black priests who literally would change the fabric of this country. So there were about 20 of us in this initial group, and all through high school we would go on retreats and have classes to talk about leadership and responsibility. Central to this training that I received, and again all through high school, was the notion that to those who have been given much, there is much responsibility to give back. And we were led by a priest whose name is Father John Meehan, and I mentioned him personally by name because the bad news associated with this relationship is that Father Meehan, who has been a priest in Harlem for over 40 years, is someone, my primary mentor, and someone who I have held in such high regard that I always feel very inadequate in comparison to what Father Meehan has done. And I always kind of hear his voice around, what are you doing? How are you involved in your school? And when he came up here to visit me during my freshman year, those were the kinds of questions that he asked me. How are you involved here? How are you making a difference? Well, thankfully, Father Meehan is retired now, but thankfully he and I are still in contact. And while I did not become a priest, although that first year here felt very much like I had become a priest, I still live with this idea about how am I giving back to this community, okay? Part of what we used to do, and because this was very much a Catholic organization, was we would have Mass at the end of these weekend retreats. And at the end of every Mass, Father Meehan would make us sing the song that goes, and they will know we are Christians by our love, by our love. Yes, they will know we are Christians by our love. And what that meant ultimately was, what are you doing? How are you a force for good in your community? So again, I've got this thing hanging over my head about whether or not I'm living up to those expectations. And sometimes there's some days I feel I am, and some days I feel I'm not. But to leave this on a more positive note, you probably heard in my bio about my working in the area of diversity. And while I probably started in an area that was related specifically to empowering the Black community. Based on having done diversity work for so long, my attitude and approach around these issues is much broader than just race. And I want to tell you a quick story, and I'll leave you with this. I started, at a firm that I worked at, I started an affinity group for LGBT lawyers. And the firm that I had worked at had never ever reported out to the Human Rights Campaign on whether there was an environment within the firm that was so-called tolerant around LGBT issues. And it took me almost 2 years to get this firm to report out on this issue. And when they finally did, a partner in one of the offices called me and said, "Rick, no one has ever been an advocate for this group and this firm. And I want to thank you for what you've done." And it's those kinds of things that makes me feel proud and happy, and in a certain sense, satisfied this craving that I have to live up to what Father Meehan has always asked me to do. That is, give back, give more, be more, do more. Thank you very much.